I want to talk about one of the best lands to ever exist in any Disney park, and that is Discoveryland over at Disneyland Paris. We are going to take it way back to the 1970s. Back when Magic Kingdom was going to be built, we all know who Tony Baxter is, right? Right. So Tony Baxter wanted to build an area in Magic Kingdom called Discovery Bay. Discovery Bay was going to be a very futuristic, technological World's Fair type of land. This land here was going to feature some attractions from Jules Verne's most famous novels like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and The Island at the Top of the World. Is this sounding a little familiar? Tony Baxter really liked the idea of combining nature with futuristic tendencies, kind of like how Jules Verne does in his own novels. Jules Verne is a famous French novelist, if you didn't know. In fact, Jules Verne's novels actually inspired some of the attractions that we see today, like Space Mountain. And of course, we know the Nautilus and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea because some parks still do have this attraction. And Journey to the Center of the Earth. This was basically going to be like Victorian science fiction. I mean, the concept art looks beautiful. Like, just take it in. This would have been right next to where Big Thunder Mountain is. This was the initial idea for the concept, and this was going to be built probably like in the late 70s. And along with the land, Disney was considering a television show called The Discovery Bay Chronicles, which was going to tie into this land. So not only was the show going to help promote the land, but it was also just going to help build that hype and excitement for it too. However, as the years went on, the hype for science fiction died out and was no longer as popular as it once was, so the idea was shelved. That is until the 90s when it was potentially in the works again. However, because of the focus on Disneyland's California Adventure, as well as the failure of the Tomorrowland in the 90s over at Disneyland, if you know, you know, this was shelved once again. However, it would have been such a cool concept because ultimately it was going to tie the land into Big Thunder Mountain. But the idea was not completely shelved. So I want you to take a look at this land once again. Keep it in your mind. Fast forward to April 1992 when Euro Disney opened. Now known as Disneyland Paris, Michael Eisner really wanted to open a European Disney park, so here we are in Paris, 1992. We don't even want to talk about the fact that that opening was a failure. That's a whole other video. I just want to focus on Discoveryland in itself. When they were designing this park, they started to think of concepts that they could use for this version of Tomorrowland. Disney was basically going to just copy and paste Disneyland over here in Paris. However, they wanted to make sure that the attractions they were opening appealed to European visitors. So when talks of Tomorrowland began, they decided that they wanted to go a different route for this Land of Tomorrow. Instead of a Land of Tomorrow, they decided on a Land of Discovery. Since so much of European history focuses on exploration and discovery, they thought that this would fit in really well with the park. They really wanted to capture the essence of famous French explorers and novelists throughout this area of the park. This park at a glance may seem like it was a lot of copy and paste attractions, but they were very different. Now, this is what the Tomorrowland looks like today, and what does it look like to you? I wonder. Ooh. Yes, Discoveryland took inspiration from Discovery Bay. Tony Baxter's original concept plan for Beyond Thunder Mountain was going to be a very similar format to Discoveryland. Of course, you can see that the theming stays in place of a World's Fair, where it truly seems like time has stood still, but also continues moving. It is very interesting to be in this land physically because walking in, it does feel like you have been transported to another time. And when I walk into Tomorrowland, I do not get that sensation. When I tell you that I walked in and I was just in awe at everything I was seeing, I felt like I was going to see Walt Disney walking through the streets. It felt like it not only captured him, but just the essence of science and exploration and wonder. I love that they were able to recycle the concept of Discovery Bay and make it into something different but similar, because I truly feel like this would have been so incredible if it was implemented originally into the park. Now, going back to Jules Verne, this land is very, very heavily influenced by his work. And like I mentioned before, Jules Verne has written some of the most famous novels, and you know of them even if you haven't read them. And a lot of the architecture was based on his perception of the future, which I find so cool. Now, there are some things to note because this version of Discoveryland was also supposed to be better than what we see today. It was going to have a Journey to the Center of the Earth attraction, as well as a replica of the Horizons attraction that we had over at Epcot, and a Nautilus walkthrough attraction. Obviously, one of those three still remain today. The other two were just never built. Also, the Nautilus was supposed to have a restaurant inside, but that was also scrapped. This was all unfortunately due to budget cuts and the failure of the park. Now, one of the opening day attractions was actually an attraction that was housed at the Magic Kingdom as well. This attraction was a Circle 360 film. This film featured a time-traveling robot with his assistant, and they took Jules Verne out of his world and brought him to the world of today. The robot at the Magic Kingdom was voiced by Robin Williams. This attraction was also taken to Tokyo Disney once it was opened. The Space Mountain here is arguably the best Space Mountain. I have ridden the one in Walt Disney World, Disneyland, and now Disneyland Paris, and I can say without a doubt, this one is the best. I don't want to spoil it, but it is an exciting adventure that just takes you by surprise in a way you would not expect. I will say it is now rethemed to Hyperspace Mountain, so for Star Wars fans, it is amazing. If you're not a Star Wars fan, it's still cool. What is really cool about this land with the whole messaging of discovery and exploration, it will never be outdated. This land may look like it belongs in the 40s and 50s. It definitely does not feel that way. Like I said before, it feels like you leave the park and you get so immersed into this incredible land of exploration and wonder and fantasy, and it's so cool. Some of the attractions that are still here today are Buzz Lightyear Laser Blast, the Orbitron, Autopia, the Videopolis Theater, which is this. This is where you can eat. This is their cosmic rays. So much better, by the way. The Arcade Alpha and Beta, the Walk Through Nautilus attraction, the Disneyland Railroad, as it does pass through here, Star Tours, The Adventures Continue, and Mickey's Fill Our Magic.